Welcome back, crew. No, it's a little late, but we are going to be wrapping up our August game of the month, Blades in the Dark, with our comprehensive review of this system. For those who are new to the channel, the way we do this is very similar to one of my favorite D&D podcasts, not another D&D podcast, NADPod for short. So we're going to go through and list our roses, thorns, and buds for this system. And for those who are familiar with it, so roses are things we loved for this system and really kind of made our day working with it. Buds are things that are like hopefully be good in the future, or something we'd love to try out down the line. And thorns are things we may just not have cared for, just may not have clicked with me in particular. So that's what we're going to be doing today, kind of just giving a comprehensive review of the Blades of the Dark system to wrap up our August month for the game. Now, quick shout out for our September game before we dive into it. September is a short month for me. I'm going to be kind of recreating parts of my honeymoon trip a little bit later this month. So I'll be out of the country for a bit. So that's why we're doing an early game September 4th or September 14th, I should say, with Into the Odd by Free League. So join us for that. We're going to be doing a compressed schedule. So with this one, we'll just be doing first impressions, the actual how to build a PC and mechanics, same episode, and then we'll do one with the actual play and then a review. So stay tuned for those. Those are coming up, and check those out for kind of another fun game by Free League. But today we're focusing on our Blades in the Dark system. In this one, I had a blast for it. Links down in the description too if you haven't seen our actual play for it. Had a great crew and I had a blast going through it. Really enjoyed this one. I would say I don't want to rank the ones I played so far, but this one would be near the top of it. I really enjoyed it. And this between the players I had at the table and the situations they got themselves into, I was laughing. I was having fun. I just had a really good game with it. So can't say enough great about it. But as we usually do with these reviews, we're going to kind of go through point by point with the things I really liked first. We always go with the good first, then some things I may not have liked, and then the things I'm excited for this system in the future. And then, as always, we'll go through things you can take away from the system to include in other games. So if you want to include it in your 5e game, your Pathfinder game, a lot of these are just universally applicable to tabletop RPGs. So you can really throw them in any system, and they should make sense. But let's go into start it off well. My favorite things really with the system is it just flows really well. And they put this in the book a lot, and really seeing play really solidified this in my mind. But it's a conversation between the game master and the players. So this is a lot of kind of a lot of back and forth, and usually with a lot of systems, most systems, I'd say, it's usually kind of the game master, the GM, kind of going through and setting down what the situation is. But Blaze Dark's a little bit more kind of fungible on that side. Players are able, given a lot more latitude, a lot more resources to be able to change that situation. I know I was a little hesitant of that at first, but it's fun. It just makes for an interesting dynamic on that side. I think it gets the players, since they have more control, they get more stakes and more buy-in on this side, so they're kind of more likely to jump in and kind of lean into the RP. And I just had a fun time with going through that. And you'll see this in our actual play. Like a lot of the times, the players were driving this, kind of setting those stakes, and a lot of it was just me kind of coming up with the devil's bargains or what those consequences would be, and kind of seeing how we can keep the scene moving and keep the scene enjoyable for everyone. I think that's really one of the core pieces of Blades of the Dark. And if you decide to play the system, make sure you have a good crew for this. It's putting that story first, putting that fiction first, and finding ways to continuously, for both the GM with the consequences and how to move the story forward, and players and their actions, how to keep that story moving forward and keep everybody bought in. That it's king. It's keeping everybody bought in, engaged, and having fun. So that was really one of my favorite pieces, just how it flowed, and just kind of that shared ownership of the story. Because in every tabletop game, it's a shared ownership, but I think Blades of the Dark is one of the few that I've seen done do a really good job of making the mechanics seem like shared ownership, which I think just gives the players gives them more tools to buy in with the story, so they actually buy in more to the story. So really best rose on that side for that, because I enjoy that aspect of it. And that kind of goes in, that kind of hits my first 2 points, actually, because it's very player driven. The players, between their flashbacks, the different things they can come up with, and how they can go about their actions, they really control a lot of the narrative. They have a large stake in it, and it just really, you get to see some wackier things, and not even just wacky, you see some really good story built moments that you wouldn't be able to see sometimes in other systems, just due to players not feeling they have that same control, or truly not having that same control. So I enjoyed that. That was really one of my favorite pieces with it so far. So couple of the other ones, these ones are a little bit more mechanics based than the first two. I love the Devil's Bargains. Those were really cool. It's something I want to incorporate more into my other games. So sneak preview on things to take away. I think I could have done a better job with them during my actual play. And if you're somebody with more Blades of the Dark experience game master, like, oh, you could have done better with those during them. But yeah, I like them. They're fun. I love giving players a chance to choose a consequence with a better chance of getting what they want. It's just a really cool system. It was probably one of my favorite pieces going away from the table at the end of the night with our actual play, was just how cool that was and just how I feel like contributes to the game and stakes at the same time. So that's something I like and something I'll be doing further too. So Devil's Bargains, look them up. This is and kind of sneak preview for our takeaways. This is something I think could fit into pretty much any system pretty well, with just a little bit of tinkering and forethought with it. So I liked that. That's a really cool feature of the system. Kind of along those lines, and this one's one that's not as easy to take away for other systems, and it's not on my takeaway list, but I loved it for this system. The flashbacks are really cool. I loved seeing the crew just kind of do that narrative flashback, take away from the scene, and figure out what crazy shenanigans they would get up to help out with their current score. That was just fun for me. It was fun to see my players really flex those creative muscles, because during flashback, it's completely up to the players. Like, what do they want to do? What are they doing to set this scene? And then it takes them completely off the rails and lets them fly wherever they want to go. So I really like that. Unfortunately, a lot of other systems I really wouldn't fit with. Like, I wouldn't want to do it for like a Pathfinder or 5e game, but for a lot of these narrative first ones, I think it's a fun little way to kind of take away from the action, or go away from the action, and figure out how the players set themselves up for success and keep everything moving. And that's actually what we'll go right into that next point too. So I loved with this system, just jumping right into the action. With Blades of the Dark, you saw our first impressions or some of our mechanics videos. You don't really go, like a lot of other systems encourage you to kind of go through a lot of prep and kind of planning out for any big adventures or endeavors your players are going to go into. But with this one, you go right into the action. You do that engagement roll and see how the crew set them up for success, and kind of just cut out a lot of that planning portion, which sometimes can be a lot of fun. I enjoy it for some other games, but sometimes it can really drag on, even for games I enjoy the planning with. And this is kind of a good way to cut it out and just get right into the fun spots and not have that 2 hours wasted on planning and first few dice rolls completely throws it out of the window. So I like that. That was a cool piece for me. So definitely enjoyed that part of it. And this is another one that's not on my takeaway list, but it could be. I mean, it depends on the system, because a lot of them don't have the flashbacks or the tools to support not doing a big planning session. But you can kind of find ways as a DM to kind of integrate this into different games and keep it moving while still making sure that the players' choices are still respected. So you can kind of tweak on that one. It wasn't one of mine I took away, but just something I really enjoyed for the system. Getting right into it and getting going. The other big rose, my last big rose, and this one's a huge rose on it. And you probably saw me with my crew in PC build one gushing about it a little bit. I love the way they set up how to build a crew and how that relates to having a fun session zero with the players. Because this system gives you the tools to really go through a good chunk of the in-fiction pieces of a session zero, without making it seem like you're just reading off a list. People, you get the players together, they get to create their crew, they get to decide, oh, are we going to be assassins, are we going to be smugglers, letting you know as the game master what types of scores, what type of adventures they're going to go after. They also let you know kind of what they're doing, kind of what type of reputation they have, how they're respected within the community, what enemies they have, what friends they have. It's just a really cool way to go through and do a session zero. It's definitely something I want to take away for other systems too, so another spoiler on that side, because it's just it gives you the session zero piece. It lets everybody come together and decide, hey, this is what type of game we're running, this is what kind of the things we'll be doing, and hopefully everybody's, hey, we're all on that same page. But in case somebody's not, they can discuss it with the rest of the group and hopefully come to an agreement. But even if they don't come to an agreement and say, hey, this isn't the game for me, at least they found out before you've wasted sessions and sessions with them kind of getting more jaded or more of their time wasted. This way it's right up front, people know, and it's a fun way to do it. So this is definitely hats off to the way they did the crew system and work it into the fiction. But those are kind of my big roses with the system. Overall, I had a ton of fun with this one. A lot of different, there's more I could go off on, but those are the ones that really stood out to me. And it's kind of things I were thinking about or kind of had me excited about the system after I was done playing. Now, there are a couple of thorns, and remember, thorns are the things I just didn't care for so much. These are pretty minor overall. The first one, this is just me. There's not as much dice rolling as the DM with this system, because most of the consequences, like even if they're in a fight, you go off of what the players rolled. So that they get that 4 or 5 or 1 through 3, you get to kind of make either have them do harm or get consequences with that. So a lot of it's 90% the players' rolls. And I talked to a couple of my friends afterwards. That old DM who's on one of the players there, it says a lot of the DMs actually do the engagement roll versus having the players do it. So that's something I may do in the future because I like to roll dice myself. But I said this is a small thorn. This is I'd almost say it's a petty thorn, just for the way I like to play. I like to roll dice too. But that's really small. Didn't really diminish my enjoyment of it. It's just something I would note as something that wasn't in the super positive column for me. The other big thing too, and so only 2 other thorns. This one is kind of a smaller one. If you're, and this is, I won't even say this is a thorn, but something I would want to point out. If you're looking for crunchy combat and crunchy encounters and kind of some tactical gameplay, Blades in the Dark is in the system. So I love crunchy combat. I love tactical gameplay. You've probably seen that from the Lancer videos. Some of the other ones we've done with this system. I love that crunchy combat. And this for me, this isn't even a thorn, but something I want to just bring to people's attention because it's great for heists, great for kind of those social and fiction-driven games. But if you want crunchy combat, you want tactics, Blades of the Dark, at least for the encounter side, isn't the best one for it. Factions, there's some cool stuff with that I think could be kind of get that the war gamer's mind going, but for just the typical gameplay, it's not going to have that, and that may be missing for some of like the core gamers on that side. But it wasn't really a thorn for me. This is a great one for just the social and in fiction first pieces, which is hopefully what you're going for but just as a heads up for people who may not have tried out the system. The last thorn, and this one's a true thorn, unfortunately. It's not even like a thorn, but it's definitely something of a drawback for me. Is that the lore for the system or lore for the game is very baked into the system, which is really cool when you're using the Dustfall lore. But it can be a little bit of a trial if you like to make your own world for the gameplay, just due to how much of it's integrated, how much it's referenced in the books. It would just be a little bit of a pain. You'd have to do a good deal more work, at least in my mind, to kind of go through and replicate and kind of have to fill in those missing pieces if you built out your own world and lore for it. And it's kind of comparable sometimes to kind of how D&D and Pathfinder have their lore set up, but I just feel like it's just built in a little bit more than those two, a little bit more essential, that if you were wanted to go and do your homebrew world, which you could definitely do, and I've even had some ideas for my own with this, it would just take a little extra step of effort on the DM's part to get that portion going and then kind of get it filled out and make sure it's communicated to the players. Because one of the other things with this system too, I think, especially with how much it is player-driven, player-focused, is you want to make sure your players have the opportunity to be aware of the world. And if you do your own homebrew world, it's going to take a little bit more effort on both your part and your players' parts just to make sure they are aware of this world and kind of what it can do and what they can do within it. But it's a minor thorn, I'll say. Let's say it's a true thorn for me, but a minor thorn on that side. If you do run the Dustfall, or do your homebrew lore, but if you want to do it a little bit easier, run the Dustfall lore. It's really cool. I liked what I've seen so far. Admittedly, I haven't done a super deep dive on the lore itself yet, but I liked it. It's definitely kind of easy if you just want to pick a fraction of it like we did for our one shot and use that and kind of use it to spur your score and adventure ideas. You could do that too, but it could be a little bit intimidating if you want to run, even if you want to run within their lore, or if you want to kind of throw their lore away. It's just something that's kind of a major piece or major theme throughout the book, so just something to keep in mind. But those are the only thorns I had for it. I seriously loved the game, had a fun time going through it. Just before we kind of go into things I would take away, I do have one bud. So in buds, you have things you're looking forward to, and one thing I'm looking forward to this system. I don't know when I'll do it. Unfortunately, free time is at a premium, but I do want to run a short campaign with the Blades of the Dark system, really focus on the factions. I thought the faction rules were really cool, really well fleshed out, and it just seemed like a really fun way to be able to dive in and have like a more strategical view of the city and have your crew progress and kind of go through the different tiers. I thought that would be a blast to run through, get my players excited for, have them build their old crew, and throw them in the city and see what they can do. Whatever type of crew they choose to be, I think it would be a blast. And just seeing how the world reacts to them, how they react to the world as they go through the faction systems and kind of level up and start wars and all of that. That would be something I wish we had more time, because I would do a quick like 4 or 5 session campaign on that to flesh it out. Stay tuned. I'm having probably around next year sometime when I've got a few games ending. I may start that up. But that was something I really enjoyed and something I have a bud for the future to be able to dive into. That was the only major, but I think we got a lot of the core mechanics in with the system. So we got to see a lot of it. The factions, and enjoyed a true session 0 with the crew system too. That would be a little bit of a bud. We did like a Discord quick talk on it, but I'd love to do a true session 0 either in person or all of us live on the line at the same time. It is really diving into it, building that fiction, building the crew, and having a blast with it. Now, last things on this one I would shout out are just different things you can take away from the system. We've touched on the clocks and the devil bargains pretty heavily so far, so I'm not going to beat those to death, as well as the session 0 using like some of the crew questions they ask in there, especially if you're this is actually, we'll talk on this one a little bit more. If you're looking to build out a group of party members who already know each other and already have those bonds established, take a look at the crew guidelines and questions they ask within the book. Especially if you're doing a homebrew world where there's gonna be different factions in there, just kind of having your players built into the world, knowing that they've got some allies as friends, some as enemies. These are the groups and what they've done to earn that kind of a friendship or an enmity. It's just a cool way to go about that, and just encouraging your players to help you build the world as you go to. I think it's perfect for a session 0, especially to get the session 0 out of the for lack of a better word, like the paperwork side of it. A lot of the Session 0, at least for me, is going through like rules, a little bit of world lore, but a lot of it is focused on rules, kind of decorum at the table, lines and veils, and all of that stuff. But this is a good way to get people into the fiction. It's not you just telling them about their lore or them telling you about their character. It's them all coming together to build out their crew and letting you kind of working with them to find where that crew fits into your world. So I love that. I think that fits for any party, kind of across the spectrum, 5e, Pathfinder, Star Wars 5e and beyond, and all the different systems. I think that would fit well for working with an established party. We're even doing like a session or a quick adventure to establish the party, and then like going into like a little session 0 time skip where they build out themselves and build themselves within the world. I think that'd be cool too. You'll see more of that coming from me in my games in the future. But those are kind of the things I love with it. So takeaways is, again, devil's bargains, clocks. Oh, and we didn't touch on clocks too much. Clocks are pretty sick with this game. We used only one clock in the game. I had a couple more I was thinking of doing, but as I said, the narrative kind of went off on its own. But yeah, clocks are amazing. I'm probably going to do a video just on clocks and how to use them for other systems. So I'm not going to beat this one on the head too much. But if you're ever looking for one thing to take away from Blades in the Dark, clocks, followed by Devil's Bargains. Both of those are great, and just add some dynamics to your game that may not otherwise be there. But that's a kind of a quick look at the Blades of Dark system. I truly had a blast with it. Shout out to John Harper, the creator. This is a fun system. And as I mentioned too, I want to start shouting out the authors and writers of these games a little bit more too. So hold me to that as we go through it. But shout outs to this one. It's a fun system. If you're on the fence about giving it a try, go in, play it. You and your players will have a blast. It's a little bit lighter, or quite a bit lighter than like 5e and Pathfinder for GM prep too. So kind of nice on that side because your players are directing it, and kind of you're going to get, it would be hard to map out Blades of Dark without putting it on rails, and rails are the things you want to completely avoid with the system. So go into it, do some light prep, have some things thought of in advance, but don't feel beholden to it. Kind of as you get that session going, pass the ball to your players and just be ready to kind of work with them to make the game fun. So before we sign off, another quick shout out. We are going to be doing Into the Odd September 14th for our actual play game. Same thing as usual. We'll be giving away a copy of the PDF of the system. Shout out to Shalal, who won our copy for the Blades of the Dark system. But come through for Into the Odd. Check us out with this system. I'm looking forward to it. I've heard some great things about it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how it plays. We're going to be doing first impressions, character build, mechanics, and then the actual play. So stay tuned, and then like and subscribe if you haven't already. Each month we pick a new game and kind of do the same thing we've done for Blades in the Dark, is just give it the full in-depth look-through treatment, going through the mechanics, impressions, cool things about the system that stand out, just to really shine a spotlight on the wider world of TTRPGs. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you around too soon. See you all later.